Hello and welcome to this video on the Future Sound System's FIL4 Timbral Sculptor, a mixture of a wave folder, filter that's multi-mode, VCA and some additional unique features I've not seen elsewhere before that really make this more than the sum of its parts. Let's check out what's to come.
The 7 levels of wave folding.
This video is sponsored by Future Sound Systems. So the Timbral Sculptor is made up of 3 distinct sections: a VCA, a filter and a folder, and there's some bells and whistles thrown in among those 3 things. We'll start with the VCA, which has a VCA input and output and a CV and attenuator. You can bias that VCA, meaning open it by a manual amount set on this bias knob, and then add and attenuate some CV modulation of your VCA level. We can think of the VCA as being the 2 extremes of the signal path here. We can either route it to the input right at the beginning of the chain, or we can have it right at the end and use it like an end of signal chain VCA. We then come to our chain with a chain in and chain out. We have the filter and the folder, the timbre circuit there, and timbre can be pre or post filter. So we can fold in pre and then hit the filter. There's also a direct timbre out if you'd like to use that as well as the chain, or you can fold the output of the filter. We've no CV over that timbre there, but there's ways to add that using the VCA, and this drive control is just a manual level to push into this chain, whether that filter or folder comes first. The filter has a frequency control, with CV1 being volt per octave tracking of that frequency, CV2 being an attenuated control for that frequency cutoff there. We have resonant with CV and attenuator. We have an audio FM, which will route some of its input here to modulate its own frequency, and that's a bipolar control for positive or negatively affecting that frequency. And the filter's outputs, we have multi-mode outs for low pass, band pass and high pass, with level controls that will blend and mix together, and CV over those levels. So you can CV morph between blends of these 3 different filter types. They can hit that timbre circuit if you like, or they can be the output when you've filtered a folded input there. The extra bells and whistles in the filter here are the folder, which is a more basic Lockhart style design rather than the booklet timbre circuit there. As well as folding that resonance path, we can rectify the resonance path, and that can be half or full wave rectification. And they don't just affect the resonance, certainly that folding, as resonance is a feedback around a filter circuit, does some really interesting and unique wave shaping. We'll of course explore all of this in a lot of patches in this video. They're on screen if you'd like to skip around to certain patches, and all linkable and clickable below. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So there's an unwritten rule that a filter demo has to start with some sweeps over a saw wave. So let's do that with just the plain filter, and we'll explore these more exotic and unique settings throughout the video. Saw wave coming in, let's listen to the low pass here. Lovely clean, smooth, low pass filtering. Let's listen to the bandpass. This really lovely kind of rubbery vocal feel. High pass. And again, this really lovely, clean kind of carving out of that low end. So that's the sound of the filter. Now this patch started with me wanting to high pass and just drive and colour these drums. It's a really nice filter for those kind of DJ-esque sweeps over your beats. And then I thought, let's push in a bit more folding. We've got those nice full-on folded beats. And then I got to wondering, what happens when we switch these things in and out? And it's absolutely bonkers. I mean, listen to it. Yes. So that's some lovely high pass sweeps over your beats, some folded resonance, pushing into the folder which was set to pre and post. I was flicking it around there. Super full on. So here's a rather lovely sounding patch, so let's just listen to it with a splash of verb before we get into what it's doing. This is the sound of the filter, have a sequence playing, with volt per octave coming into frequency 1. We're coming into the VCA first, and that's set to pre, so that's going to be the first thing in this circuit. That's then going to hit this timbre circuit, this boucle style folding. So if I add some VCA CV, actually CV the level of this VCA before it hits it, we'll start to get some changing tones. It's almost like octave effects and this woody kind of boucle-esque undertone. I've got some CV over resonance as well, so some steps are more resonant than others. Finally, I can blend in some high pass, just an LFO coming in here. Push that fold up by pushing more VCA level. So here I'm using the Timbral Sculptor as a phaser. Now it's not a phaser, but we can certainly use it like one, and it sounds really good when you do that. So let's just do a couple of little performative moves that I'm enjoying here, and then we'll strip this back and get into this phasing. So this is the sound of the Timbral Sculptor. It's 4 oscillators here, 3 from the recombination engine, 1 from the cyclical engine, and as I bring these in this mixer, you can hear they're kind of loosely tuned to a chord tone, big rich analog chord sound. This comes into the chain with the drive up front, so I could really fold all this just sounds killer. And the idea is simply to use the low pass and the high pass, and because where these cross over in terms of their filter roll-off slopes, we get this notch, and moving that around with the frequency control creates a phase-like shift. Sounds a bit like a phaser. Resonance would be a feedback control, and add some LFO, which is a modulated oct here, and we've got these lovely phaser-style effects. And this is just droning here in my mixer. There's also a copy coming into this Vactral passive low pass gate. Just been struck by a rhythm here. And you can hear that phasing works really well against that sound. Some verb back in, and some drums. So here we're pinging the FIL4, getting these nice percussive, underwatery, drippy kind of sounds. Now a lot of that's to do with the reverb, which I'll remove. This is simply a trigger into the chain in. Timbre circuit is first. I'm coming out of the chain, not coming through this VCA. Adding a Volt Proctive signal to frequency CV1 there. We can push more of that trigger into this timbre circuit up front. Gets more clicky. And we can shorten those notes down by lowering the res. But I like that bit of ring and noise on them. Reverb back in. So try pinging that filter while it's resonant and explore these nice little percussive filter sounds. So let's look at making this audio FM CV controllable. Now adding in some audio FM, so that the input starts to modulate the cutoff again. With a very different sound. And I can do this with inverted behaviour as well. And because we have this routable input or output VCA, by setting this to output, it's not affecting my chain in and outs that I'm using for the filter here. So I've patched a copy of this to the VCA. The output of the VCA, I'm going to patch to CV2. Turn up CV2, and now turn up my VCA bias. It will route my copy of the input to the cutoff, which is all that knob is doing. You can hear it's the same kind of thing. Now if I invert CV2's behaviour, then we get, so by CV controlling the VCA, with an external envelope, I can now modulate audio FM. Just turning down that effect and adding a basic envelope to frequency CV in 1 here. Bit of resonance. Maybe push a bit of drive and folding on that input too. Let's add in some of this VCA controlled audio FM. It's a really lovely way to modulate and accent and add to existing modulation within this filter. So let's explore and enjoy some utter filth. It started with me playing around with audio rate modulation, which sounds amazing. Let's just turn knobs and get some really nasty sounds. I think you'll agree, there's lots of filth in there if you want to explore some nasty tones. So here I'm using the Timbral Sculptor's VCA to modulate modulation. Now coming into this VCA is this green trace and green cable, a triangle LFO. The CV for the VCA, blue trace and blue cables, is this ADSR. And I have a probability gate firing this ADSR that will make the level of this LFO rise and fall. And we can see that on this yellow trace, and it's on these yellow cables. The same LFO also modulates the rate of the LFO. So what I get at the end is an LFO that rises and falls in level and rises and falls in rate at the same time. Now it's a really over-egged, kind of overly pushed example to make it clear. If I patch that into the frequency of the filter, and it's a really full-on example, but you can use this VCA to modulate modulation, you can use it entirely separately to this signal path, and you can even patch this output somewhere else in the patch, and it would just be an independent bonus VCA thrown into the module.
The 7 levels of wavefolding.
Hello, sorry to cut into your video. This idea of the 7 levels of wavefolding was a fun video that I kind of started to make in the middle of making this one. But as I filmed this with the Timbral Sculptor, I'd be silly not to put a little preview of that in the video, because each level of this folding I think sounds great here. So enjoy my 7 levels of wavefolding.
The 7 levels of wavefolding.
Level 1. Fold your waveforms. Level 2. Adding symmetry. Level 3. CV the fold amount. Level 4. Blended modulation. Level 5. Audio rate modulation. Level 6. Feedback. Level 7. All the stages. Everything all at once. So here I'm making this delay effect more tape-like, and by that I mean crunchier, noisier, just kind of these resonances moving around in the feedback path. It certainly sounds different to just turning up the feedback on this PT-based crush delay. Without the feedback from this module, this is all the patch does. But turning up this send and return path, the feedback path for this delay signal, have all these unsynced LFOs here modulating things like the low pass and high pass level, bandpass stays up full, the filters cut off, the resonance, and the VCA that's on the output, serving as a kind of master feedback level. And I'll just let this cycle round, listen to these feedback trails. It certainly sounds quite close to some of my tape delays. So here we'll explore these resonance shaping switches, with the folder and the rectifier that can be half or full wave. Let's just play around quickly, and then we'll get into it. Oof, listen to that. Killer. So here I have a saw wave oscillator coming into the Timbral Sculptor, and I'm coming out of the VCA, and the VCA is wide open. For now I have no modulation going on. We've got that nice low pass resonant filter. Now the first switch here is a folder, and it's not as sophisticated as the booklet 259-esque timbre circuit there. It's a more basic Lockhart folder. And it certainly does some interesting wave shaping. We then have a rectifier, which can half wave rectify the resonance. And you can see it really kicks that resonance in. Full wave rectification. Much subtler. And we can fold this resonance circuit and rectify it. And it gets a really different... I mean, why is the resonance just there, right in the middle of the wave? It's a very different sounding filter. It's a really unique character. Now let's try this with, say, the bandpass. Lovely vocal band. Folding. And rectifying. High pass. Now getting this sequence playing again. And we'll play around with those switches one last time. Audio FM has a really big effect here. God, it's great. Almost kind of glitches out on certain notes. So let's explore some guitar through the Timbral Sculptor. We'll create a nice kind of liquidy auto-wah effect that work great for funk licks, and then we'll go into some all-out fuzzy madness by folding this resonant stage. Now here's the clean guitar tone. Moving that from this TG preamp to the chain out, which has the guitar going in. This is the filter, nicely resonant, and the envelope from the preamp controlling that filter cutoff for an auto-wah style effect. Now that's all well and good, and auto-wah sounds are great, but let's take this into some really quite full-on madness by folding that resonant stage. And as the envelope's moving that cutoff, we get this kind of dive bomb as it kind of comes back in with this heavily folded, nasty resonance. Bonkers. So here's a really fun patch, and probably the most complicated one in the video. It's just a mega modulation of the Timbral Sculptor. Super croaky, robotic, resonant, filthy. It's ace. So dynamic levels coming in via an external VCA to modulate the fold amount, envelope and mixed LFO and audio rate modulation to the cutoff, ducking that resonance back when the audio rate signal comes in, and an envelope over that VCA on the end. Heavy lifting from the Timbral Sculptor, but it just sounds so good. So this is the Timbral Sculptor as a voice. It's oscillating with the resonance up full here. Timbre is post, so it's hitting this folder. Vote per octave into CV1 there. I'm using an envelope, which I'm just attenuating in this mixer to low pass there, so we can push how much level hits this folder. Envelope to VCA CV, which I'll just open up for now. Let's lose my effects, and here this is dry. As I push more level into this folder, we're pushing more filter output to that timbre circuit. Doing that with an envelope here, just on this attenuator. These really lovely enveloped fold tones. Bringing the bias of the VCA down, have a basic 16th note envelope on that VCA, which is over the whole output. So here we're going to take the Timbral Sculptor from a kind of quacky, acidic sound through to something that I find hard to describe. It's something unique, kind of bigger than the sum of the parts. Rubbery is maybe a good word. I like all these weird kind of audio descriptors. It's also subjective. This is simply a saw wave coming into the filter. Timbre is coming before the filtering, so we'll get into doing some folding. VCA is on the output, and the first thing was to put this blue trace here, this envelope, into the VCA CV input. They've found a nice resonant sound in this low pass filtering, and I have the volt per octave signal that's playing my oscillator's saw wave coming into frequency CV1. You can hear that resonant peaking the filtering now moves relative to the pitch that's coming in. Adding an envelope, this green trace, which is playing less frequently than the main one on the VCA, to CV2 here. Now at this stage, as I push the drive, that chain input level, because timbre is set to be first, will push into this folding. And you can hear it's instantly quite a different sound. The audio FM that models how Korg filters of the yesteryear overdrive and modulate themselves will route some of this input to the cutoff. rubbery, trumpy. Push some high pass in. There's just such range on the audio FM, the drive there. So let's explore some utter filth, making some kick drums, some noise, some feedback, audio FM. It's good fun. Now this gets really fun if I patch the chain out back to itself so I can drive that folder with it and do some audio FM. There he goes. Sounds like we're killing the circuit, which I'm absolutely into. It's bonkers when you want it to be. If you've got this far in the video, go leave a comment saying, I am a Timbral Sculptor. Yes, you are a Timbral Sculptor, a real wizard of the voltage, bending, twisting, distorting and filtering your waveforms. If you'd like to come and be part of my community on Discord, gain access to PDF patch books, bonus videos, and the mentioned extended exclusive patch from earlier in this video, check out my Patreon linked in the description and consider becoming a supporter. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.